Hey guys, so just a real quick recap on what we did last day before we went out and got to use our chisels. Okay, we talked about trees, right? Here's my nice, beautiful, pretty tree, right? We talked about how trees soak up their nutrients in their roots, and so a tree basically is like a whole bunch of different straws, and the straws are designed to get the water and the nutrients out to our leaves. So when we mix CO2 with all those nutrients and water and sunlight and do our photosynthesis, right? We make food for the tree and we make oxygen for ourselves, right? So that's the straws in our tree, okay? So when we talked about if we chopped a tree down and we looked at a big log, right? And my log, depending how I cut the log up to get boards out of it, right? My board could have nice straight grain. This is the stuff that we like. Or it could be like somewhere out of here where the grain runs at crazy angles through it, right? And those boards tend to warp. They're not as good. Okay, so we talked about that. Then we also talked about when we were looking at our board, how our board was super strong this way. And we showed that when we watched the video and he whacked on it. And this way, the wood grain didn't dent at all. But then when we whacked this way, we had this big, huge dent that happened in the side of our board because trees have to be soft this way so that they can move and bend with the wind. And they have to be super strong this way because trees are extremely heavy, right? So then we took a quick look. We talked about there's different, like, and even here, this would be kind of the big, wide part of the tree. This is kind of a skinny little tiny growth ring in the tree, and that shows up on our board too. We have a nice big wide growth ring, or we have a skinny one. Then we have another big wide one. And then a little skinny one, right? And we talked about how these are different, they're different times of the year when it was grown, right? So the big ones, this is gonna be, if I write it down here, this is my summer, right? This was also, it's kind of a white color, right? Because it grew a lot and it grew very quickly. This is also our softer area, right? Then we talked about, sorry, that's my soft from there, right? Okay. Then we talked about the little tiny growth ring, right? And that one, that was our winter, right? It was kind of a yellowish color, right? And it was hard because, again, remember, in winter, our trees aren't growing very much. They can't soak up water that's frozen in the ground, right? They don't have their leaves, so they can't do photosynthesis. So the amount of growth that a tree does in winter is not very much, okay? Perfect. So that's kind of the recap. Remember then, after that, we use the strength and the weakness of the tree to do different things for us, right? And we went out to the shop and we went with the grain and against the grain in a bunch of different ways with our chisel, right? We went with the grain, remember that is going with the straws, and we went across. So this was my across the grain, and this was with, right? And we did it a bunch of different ways. I took my chisel, and remember we took the bevel, so if we had it like this, we took our chisel like that, and if we left it nice and flat, so if I drew this chisel kind of coming up this way, right? If I took my chisel like this, and I went with the grain across here, this way, there's my horrible handle, right? When I went with the grain, I was able to chisel out nice big shavings that curled off, and it was super cool, right? When I took my chisel flat like that, like this, and I went across the grain, remember how it broke out and it absolutely destroyed the board and it wasn't very nice? Okay. And then the last thing that we tested, well, actually we tested two more things, but one of the other things that we tested was when we took our chisel on a nice flat, oops, let's leave that open. When we took it on the nice flat, sharp tip. What am I drawing here? Like that, okay? And then it went beveled back just a little bit this way and over, right? When I took my chisel like this and I went across the grain, I was able to draw nice straight lines. If I drew them really, really close together, then the little bits of wood in between there would just fall out, right? And that's good for us. If we take our chisel like this and we go with the grain though, remember how, like if my wood grain kind of wiggled around, when I put my chisel, the tip of my chisel in there, it would follow that wood grain, right? And it was hard to draw a straight line, okay? Then we also talked about if we took our chisel and we split the wood, right? We could put it just like this, and we could split the wood right in half along the grain. If we took our chisel like this and we hammered on it with our hammer, all we did was we severed the wood fibers. So instead of them being all connected, we just kind of chiseled them apart. So these ones up here were broken and these ones down here were still together, right? And we use that to our advantage so we could chisel out and make our little shapes and stuff that we did out in the shop, right? So again, today, you guys are gonna do this. You're gonna grab your board. On your board, you are going to draw something that you would like to chisel out into a kind of a 3D. So if this was, let's pretend this is the size of my board. Remember, I'm not trying to draw a tiny, teeny, tiny little thing that's hiding in the bottom corner. I wanna draw something that takes up my whole board, nice and big. So Mr. Taylor likes doing T's, right? Remember to get this T chiseled out, sorry, this is with the grain, this is across, okay? Remember when we did this? We would have to sever the fibers. So I would put my chisel and stand it up and cut it down into there, and then I would take it flat like this, and I would chisel along this line, and those little curly cues would come off, right? So my whole goal was to pay attention to which way the wood grain's going, how I'm gonna use my chisel so that I can chisel that out. And then once I had it chiseled out, I took the torch and I burnt it, right? Went, and then I had this, it kind of stood off the page and it looked really cool, right? I don't think I have one standing here, otherwise I'd show it to you. But that's what you're gonna do today, or continue to do today, okay? That's it. Have a great week, have fun.